We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday and it's Old Soul Day. It's not really Old Soul Day. That would normally be Thursday, but she's here early on Tuesday. And you know
Yep.
why you're here early on Tuesday, Old Soul?
You know what? I didn't even ask. Do
Well,
tell.
it's because we have a gentleman that wanted to be on the show, and it's the first time ever that he's been on the show. And so I
Yeah.
gave him a little leeway, and he said Wednesday would work best for him. I said, okay, we'll do it Wednesday night. It'll play Thursday morning. So we have a new face coming on, and we'll see how that goes. So I thought I'd call Old Soul, and I'd say, do you want to do it a day early? And it turns out it worked out better for you. So all is well.
Yes, we have our security training for poll workers. So it actually was kind of like perfect timing because I was like, I don't know what time we're gonna get done with this. And then I was like, okay, maybe let me just like ask around. And then I don't know, maybe like 2 hours later you hit me up and I was like, oh yeah, that's great.
Well, and this is the first time in a while that we're talking to you, and you're at home now. So finally, life is getting back to normal. You're not trudging through some protest or dealing with some traumatic situation. You're at home and back to life as normal. That's good.
I was with the wild child on Labor Day. She had like an ROTC thing to do. And
Yeah.
so I went down to show support there. We had like a water balloon fight. We went to the pool. We just kind of like hung out, just kind of like enjoyed the day. It was pretty cool.
Well, that's good. You said you've
Yeah.
got another client coming, a woman who's looking to get reproductive health care. She's in
Yeah.
a state that is where it's illegal, so she's going to come stay with you. What's
I
up with
have
that?
I have two. So the
Two.
first one, she's coming with her husband and her daughter.
Okay.
And so that, just typical, this is a last resort from them because they were saying, she's not sick enough yet. But so at the same time, one of the organizers that I protested with in Arkansas, she calls me and she says that a classmate that she used to go to school with, she's 30, she like needs a place to go. And I'm like, the timing is off, but we'll figure it out because I have like a whole family coming here.
Yeah.
And I told her I would figure it out. Come to find out, her old classmate was one of these people that were counter protesting against us when we were protesting. So she was one of the ones out there with her Bible, standing next to these guys that's
Wow.
saying vile, disgusting things. And I'm like, I've never been conflicted. I've had Republicans, Trump support. Well, they used to be Trump supporters until all of a sudden this affected them, and then they started rethinking things. But I've always said, it doesn't matter who they voted for, what their background is. If they need a place to come, they could come here. I've never felt conflicted until now, and I just did not want to do it.
So
I
you
got to
got
be honest. I still kind of don't want to do it. She's not in any trouble. She's not sick. This isn't an emergency case. Come to find out, she's having an affair with one of the leaders in that church. He gave her money to get the procedure done, but he's like, traveling, you're on your own. Food, you're on your own. Wherever you need to stay, you're on your own. And by the way, you need to hurry up because, I got a wife and some children, and your husband has a vasectomy, so he's already going to know that's not his. Like complete drama. So the compromise that I came to, because I just don't want her to come here, is my honey and his girls. They're gonna come stay here with me, and it'll be nice because they have a daughter that's like the same age as his girls, so she's not like feeling alone by herself. And then the person from Arkansas, she's gonna go to his place. I'll make sure she gets to her appointments. She'll be fed, all that good stuff. It's just that I just the things that they were saying and us being followed. And I think if it was just me, it'd be different. But there were like girls out there. The wild child was with me when they were doing this. And I'm going to do it. I'm not looking forward to it. And I'm still feeling some type of way about it, but I've already agreed to it. And I'm not going to go back on my word. But
wow.
that's the truth within that. So,
So let me see if I understand this. This woman is
mhm.
religious, highly against abortion, very family oriented.
She's
However,
getting,
she's pregnant because she cheated on her husband. Now she has to get an abortion, and apparently abortion's okay right now as long as she needs one. The
Yeah.
boyfriend isn't involved. She's coming here, coming to
Yep.
your place with her daughter and her husband, who was the one that was cheated on.
You got them mixed up. So I have through the agency a woman, her husband, and their daughter.
They're
So they were
normal.
all coming here. But then I get the call from the woman from Arkansas who's cheating or her husband with the guy in the church
Okay.
that was like counter protesting against us. I just those people were just like some of the like the looks on their faces, the stuff that they were saying. It's just kind of like I kind of feel like she deserves to wear the scarlet letter. But
Absolutely.
you know,
Well, as I've always said, you're a better person than I, because I would have said, fuck yourself. Deal with it. Go find somebody else. You're a despicable human being. You've wrought horrible things on innocent women, and now you need help, and now it's okay. Fuck you. That's what I would say.
I think that what tipped me over the edge really was the organizer.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I went to school with her. I know who she is. She just got caught up in this religious sector over here. You know, she was like, we don't know, like, you know, when they are women now, but when they're girls, they're kind of like groomed to be a certain way or whatever. And I'm just like,
Well,
so
if you're a full grown woman or a full grown man for that matter, and they go, we just got caught up in it. Fuck you. You're an adult. You can make the right decision. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. Make the decision. And if you make the wrong decision, which we do from time to time, then fucking deal with it. Don't come crying to somebody else that you've been trying to destroy.
yeah,
It's yeah.
I've never had any kind of like drama. I've never felt conflicted. And then I was just like, ugh. I'm honestly, I'm glad that she told me, but I wouldn't have known if she didn't say anything. Like those people, I'm just kind of like looking past them, looking at
Yeah.
the women by making sure we're okay. But I wasn't like
Right.
looking at them as if I would, you know, be able to identify any of them in a lineup, a photo lineup or something. Um, but yeah, so she's gonna be okay for those few days that she's here, but
I,
I don't
I,
think I'll be my regular hospitable self.
well, let's talk about some of the things that are happening politically. And there's one thing you and I were talking about beforehand, and I think it's worth talking about because these Republicans are absolutely desperate to come up with anything to discredit Kamala Harris, and it's not working, thankfully. But Peter Ducey from Fox News was questioning um, the communications director, Karina Jean-Pierre, I think, and
Yeah.
was talking about Kamala Harris, how her voice changes or her dialect changes from time to time. I'm sure he didn't say it, but I'm sure he was thinking, 1 minute she talks white and then she talks black. That's not what he said, but that's what he meant. And he's trying to make that into something. And you were explaining to me, and I said to myself, I use different dialects when I'm talking just to emphasize what I'm saying, but that's that's pretty racist for him to even mention that.
It's not it is something that's going on the right now. It's not just him. Before that press conference, the New York Times posted a piece with video, and they had her on the top, you know, talking, and then they would play it on the bottom of her talking in a different way, just trying to prove that she is doing this on purpose. And I'm and then he did it right afterwards, so you can't tell me this wasn't coordinated. And it is explicitly racist. And then there's another intention behind that because they're also trying to take the black vote from her. And I'm like, that doesn't happen because we all know what it's like. We in my community we call it code switching. You know what I mean? When I'm talking to you or I'm at home. My friends, all my female friends, I call them girlfriend. Like, hey, girlfriend, what's up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't talk like that at work. It just doesn't come off well. You just can't do that because you are judged. They do think certain things about you. So I do have to speak in a different tone. I call it like my professional tone. My
Right.
friends call it my white girl tone. But it's like it's me. I'm not the same. I just use different types of language.
You
But
know
I'm
you know who else does that a lot? You know who else does that a lot? Oprah. Oprah does it a lot. So let's crucify Oprah for doing that shit. It's funny now that you mention it, what people don't realize is that when I'm not doing the podcast or TikToks, I never swear. Never swear. This is all just put on for show. So Peter Ducey, come on after me. Fucking
I think
ridiculous.
like when she first starts talking, she comes out and she's presidential and she's doing that whole bit. But you can tell when she's like leaning into her speech. You can tell when she's getting compassionate because it's just kind of like you don't think about it on a subconscious level. She automatically just switches back to her regular language, how she is when she's speaking with her friends or her
Right.
family. Like it's just automatic. That's something that she does. No one looks at that as negative except for them.
Right.
But they do try to pull in that white vote because if you've never had to change up when you've walked into a room, if you've never had to watch your language, you've never had to adjust how you wear your hair, if you've never had to do any of those things, you've never been judged in that type of way and you have absolutely no idea what code switching is or why people do it. So I think that that's the audience that they are appealing to, in
Right.
addition to trying to split the black vote, which that's not going to work because we all know what that is. It's just so racist. The racism is just out of control. It's
Well,
just annoying to me.
it's interesting from my perspective as an old white man, when I see her dance or laugh or
Yeah,
switch her dialect a little bit, I don't see it as negative at all as a white person. I see it as she's more relatable. She's more real. Instead of some person standing up there like an elite, speaking in the perfect King's English and talking at us, she feels more like she's one of us. And I think that is beneficial to her. I think that's helpful to her. And I think it bugs the Republicans because they don't understand how a white person and a black person can relate. They see that division. So when they see her do something like that, see white people, she's really black. Or she's not really black. Or black people, she's only catering to you when she feels like she wants to. That's not what she's doing. I mean, I fucking get it.
yeah, and I do think they are trying to. It's the same thing when they're like trying now that they're trying to say, oh, she never worked at McDonald's. She never did that. You know what I mean? It's like it's not it's not the flex that they think it is. And then it just kind of goes to show how little they think of their supporters. What they posted was like an application that she was posting. I don't know if it was like for some kind of like law job. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
And she left off her McDonald's off of her
Well,
resume.
of course she would.
I was going to apply at I used to work at Wells Fargo. So if I'm going to go apply at Wells Fargo, I leave my healthcare stuff off of that resume and I boost up my financial experience on that resume. So certain things you're just not going to see. They don't understand that you need to curtail your resume to the position that you are applying for. If I'm
Right.
trying to be a lawyer, I'm not going to put my McDonald's experience on my resume. But they posted her application, and the fact that she left that off. Trump said on a podcast that I was just watching, and he said she needs to come out and prove that she worked at
No,
McDonald's.
she
And
doesn't.
she lied.
You know,
You know what I mean? Like he
the
is challenging her in the dumbest way I have ever seen in my life. It's
well,
just
I guess I need to confess up front that after I turned 18,
yeah,
my year stint as a cook at Riverview Pizza, I dropped it off my resume. I didn't think it was going to be helpful to me when I was trying to get bigger, better jobs. That's absolutely ridiculous. And when you think about it, okay, they're trying to get her because she maybe didn't work at McDonald's or she talks with a black voice from time to time. And Donald Trump has been convicted 34 times of fraud and election interference in 2016. And he's been found liable for sexual assault. Really? Kamala Harris, you think she didn't work at McDonald's and that's the thing you're going to combat all this stuff with? Please, motherfucker.
what I've been seeing from the calls that I make, the phone banking,
Yeah.
is there are people who are racist and they have no idea that they are.
Oh, I
So
know.
they
I know.
Donald Trump and they'll be like, well, I want to hear his policies. I want to hear what he has to say, even though there is none. And then when it comes to Kamala Harris, it's just, or, Obama, Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, pick a minority. It's just
Right.
like, well, I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about it. And when you ask them where the bad feeling is, why are they feeling that way? It's just like, I don't know. It's
We
just
know.
something.
We know why.
We know what it is. They don't know what it is. The same reason they don't know why they cross the street if they see a brown person at night, or they'll look at somebody and they'll make an assumption. But when you call them out on it, it's like, I'm not racist. I have Black friends. I do this. They really don't think that they are.
Oh,
And
I
so you have
know.
to challenge where that is, where it's coming from. And some of them, they just don't like to be challenged. They're like, I'm not racist. I know I'm not racist. Democrats are just saying everybody is racist. And then when you say, okay, well, name a policy of Trump's that you like. And they literally cannot name a policy.
No,
And
they
then when
can't.
you start breaking down Kamala Harris's policies, they like that. They agree with that. And I'm like, but you're listening to Donald Trump telling you that's communism because he doesn't want your children to struggle for education, or because her and Tim Walz want universal free breakfast and lunch, or universal pre-K, whatever it is. They are trained to think that these are communist ideas, but they don't know what the idea is. They just say, oh, she's communist. She wants to give everything away. She wants open borders. But when you say, well, they want universal pre-K, so parents can go back to work, or they want universal free breakfast and lunch for any child. You don't have to apply for that. Do you think that's communist? Does that sound communist? Does that
Yeah.
sound like a Marxist? And then when you start pushing them in that direction, they would just say, yeah, they think she's a communist with no idea of what her platform is. And then you say, well, why don't you watch her speech, or why don't you go to her website and see what her agenda is? They'll just say, oh, well, Fox News or whatever said that she's a communist and she wants
Right.
to price control. And it's like, no, she doesn't want to price control. These are people they have a monopoly on groceries, and they are overcharging us, which is price gouging, so that they can fatten their pockets and we have to pay more, or shrinkflation, which Biden always talks about. Don't you want somebody to check them so they're not just charging you more for groceries just because? And
Yeah.
they'll be like, well, you should just be charging us. Well, that's what she's saying, but they do not hear this
No.
online and on the news media that
Yeah,
they
but
watch.
don't you think the vibe around her and Donald Trump is a lot different? Prior when Donald Trump left office in 2020, you got all these people saying these things. I love his policies, but there is no policies. I don't like Democrats because they're communist. Don't you think it's kind of degraded for the Republicans a lot since 2020 to now, that they don't have the strength or the credibility, even with the people that follow them? And when I say people that follow them, I'm not talking about the base. I'm talking about the Republicans that stood with them in spite of the fact they had to hold their nose. But I don't. I think everything with the Republicans, particularly Donald Trump, is starting to slip now. I mean, it's coming out to the point where they're making ridiculous statements. It's almost embarrassing. It's like the Republicans don't have the strength or the support they once had, and now they're just flailing, and now they're just desperate, and that's why they're going to bitch about whether Kamala worked at fucking McDonald's or not.
Yeah, I don't think that is one thing, something that I've figured out. I think it's just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. Like it just kind of like adds up. If you look in a relationship where they're working half the time, and it's like, oh, I make good money, I can kind of deal with that. Or they want to take your car and not bring it back on time. It's like, oh, that's just something that a guy does. But then they go out and cheat, and you're like, okay, you know what, this is enough. I
Yeah.
think that's how it is with the Republican Party. Because when you just think about the Arlington Cemetery thing, right?
Right.
So you said, oh, John McCain, that wasn't a deal breaker. Losers and suckers, that wasn't a deal breaker. What's in it for them, that wasn't a deal breaker. Oh, I like to give this award because that combat vet award, they're all banged up or they're dead by a bunch of bullets. That wasn't enough. But then Arlington Cemetery is like, okay, so we've had this, and this, and now you want to add this on top of it. Now it's enough. And so I do think with the Republicans, when it comes to Trump and MAGA, they have a lot a lot of leeway. It's like they have to really just add it up in order for them to have enough, versus Tim Walz can make one slip up in one sentence from 5 years ago, and now all of a sudden they have to question everything about this man and his dog. It's just like they don't even see their own bias, because it's like this should have been enough 10 years ago. and,
Yeah.
and they don't see that bias. They don't see how much leeway that they give them. I just think that right now people are exhausted from Trump. He's like the energy vampire. He just
Yeah.
sucks all the energy out the room. He's low energy. He's so negative. The way that he talks about America, it's not that we're a nation in decline anymore. I heard him say the American dream is dead. It's gone. It's dead. It's nothing. It's crap. Like he literally said that on stage. And then when you add that on top of the way that he's treated our veterans, I think for them, like, okay, this is a bridge too far. Everything else is like they can kind of hold their nose, but this is just kind of like that straw that broke the camel's back, I guess I could say.
Well, Eric made a point yesterday when we were talking to him on the show, and he said he was surprised by the Arlington Cemetery scandal, if you will, uh,
Yeah.
that it had legs even to this point. Everything seems to fade away because it's drowned out by some other crazy thing, but this is stuck around. And this Arlington National Cemetery, it's obviously impacting Donald Trump because he's in that running away and flailing moment, much like he is with Project 2025. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about that later. But when it first came out, he basically said that, well, I just went out there. People had cameras. They wanted to take pictures of me. What am I supposed to do? Well, then of course, we find out that he brought the cameras out there, and JD Vance said, well, it's not like he produced a commercial, and then a commercial came out. So he was having trouble trying to balance this. I don't know if you heard this yesterday. He just said, yeah, it never happened. It's a hoax. We
He
got
was
we got video and camera photos of this shit, for Christ's sake.
In addition to that, I think that a lot of things that Donald Trump does is he doesn't realize both sides of this.
No.
So when he comes out and he says that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are responsible for those 13 people losing their lives, then you have like Vote Vets, Sons of Liberty. You have all of these groups that, previously they're like professional, they're in the background remaining silent, but
Right.
now the Trump campaign is suing Michigan because they want to make it harder for vets to vote. And then you're like constantly doing this, you're telling these lies. And then the disrespect on top of that, you are taking other people and their pain and you're twisting it and you're using them to prop up to make a political point. So
Right.
now you have all of these people who are coming out and saying, no, that's not what happened. This is what Trump did. So for a while, that narrative was out there, but then they pushed it to a point to where people who actually know what happened are coming out and speaking on it. And they are telling people Trump's role in that and his negotiations with the Taliban and him wanting to bring them to Camp David. These are things that, believe it or not, people, they hadn't heard that before. They didn't know 5,000 people got released because Fox doesn't tell them that.
No.
So these details they are hearing for the first time. And when they look it up, they can easily verify it. They can even verify it through Fox on print, not on television. What it is doing is it's shining a light on that situation, and it's slanted more his direction as the person who is to blame in the whole setup. So he didn't realize that that could be a consequence of that little stuff that he tried to pull. He
Well,
didn't realize that.
he thinks he's a magical orator that when he says something, everybody just believes it. I don't know if you've heard this explanation. People are getting on him about going off on tangents. He was talking about nobody can buy bacon. Then he went on to wind energy, and he was fucking lost. And obviously, he's getting criticized for it because he made a comment about it yesterday or the day before. And I don't know if you heard this. He said, people are giving me a hard time about this, but you got to understand what I'm doing. It's called a weave. I can talk about 9 things at once, and then I mystically, magically, and marvelously bring it all together in the end. He says, I have English professors that think it's absolute genius. No, you don't, Donnie. None of it makes sense. It never makes any sense. It's because you're not thinking, you're reacting, you're just spitting out whatever comes out of your head and through your mouth. But he's obviously feeling the pinch for this criticism, much like Joe Biden got, because people are going, yeah, Don, we don't know what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah, I think part of that is him trying to prep his supporters for when he does ramble and when he does go off on these tangents, it's giving them permission to tell themselves, oh, he's doing this on purpose. He's
Yeah.
intentionally doing this. He's going to weave it all together. So he is, basically priming them to listen to him speak for 2 hours and not say anything at all. He's just rambling. He's priming them to think that it's intentional. He's not getting old. He's not missing a step. Oh, he's intentionally doing that. So he's giving them permission to believe that. And I do think part of the reason for that, I don't know if you saw that article in The Guardian when they interviewed people as they were leaving the rally.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
People were like, it's a really good article. And these were Republicans and Trump supporters. And one of the women, when she left the rally, the interviewer was like asking her questions. And she said that he scared me. Listening to him talk and the things that he was saying, it scared me. And these are like some of the people that were like leaving early.
Right.
And she said she could not in good conscience vote for him after going to that rally. There was another Trump supporter with her husband, and she said nothing he said has anything to do with anything that
Right.
we care about, like housing, food, this, that. She said, and I really wish that he would stop attacking her gender and her race.
Right.
So if you look at that article, I can send it to you from The Guardian when they're interviewing these people as they're leaving the rally and they're leaving the rally early and they're telling The Guardian why they're leaving the rally. It's like, it makes me feel like I think most of the Republicans need to go to his rallies and hear this crap and then get their mind changed, not by us, but by Trump himself. Because Fox, what they're doing right now is they're cutting him off.
Right.
Like they'll play the first 5 minutes or something. As soon as he starts going, they cut it off. And then what they do with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, they'll have the video in the background on mute. And
Right.
they're talking and telling the people, oh, she's not really talking about anything. She's trying to say this, she's trying to say that. So instead of letting the people hear her, they can see her talking, but they can hear Fox News telling them what they think she's saying in her speech, which is, I don't know how to deal with this media.
I have to disagree with you on one thing. You were talking about how Donald Trump is saying that this is the weave and you're kind of conditioning the audience. I don't think his thought goes that in depth. No, I'm serious, and I'm not trying to put him down, although I'm happy to do it. But you have to understand the mentality here. This guy isn't very bright. Everything he does is emotional, and you know how he loves chaos. His whole life is chaotic because when he's talking, he's just responding to things he's heard or is worried about. It's like this ADHD kid constantly putting out little fires. Okay, I know they said this, so I got to say this. He doesn't think about it. He just says whatever's contrary to that. And if he has to exaggerate it, he does it. There is really no thought process to what he's saying. He's just trying to put out fires and he's chaotic all the time. And it's fucking stupid. And that kind of brings us to the one thing I wanted to talk about. We still don't know what's going to happen. We have this debate scheduled for September 10th on ABC, Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
At first, he started making excuses. Oh, ABC is so bad. And then he started talking about going because people said you're a pussy ass bitch for not going. So he couldn't handle that. So he says, well, I'm going. And then they started about talking about the rules. Um, and the rules were pretty much the same as what they had at CNN the first time around with Joe Biden. There'd be no audience, and they would turn off the mics of the opposite person when one other was talking. And now Kamala came out. now it's switched around because Donald Trump's team wants those mics turned off. Kamala says, no, fucking turn them on. Donald Trump says, no, fucking turn them on. And then Kamala says, you want them on, I want them on, but your people don't want them on. Donnie, who's in charge over there? I personally don't think Kamala cares if they're on or off because she's going to annihilate him. I think she's just fucking with his head right now, trying to taunt him at every turn. And I think that's probably the best strategy.
Yeah, I concur. She is just poking him with a stick. She wants him to get to the debate stage and have so much anger, frustration. She wants all of that to be built up, and she wants him to unleash that on the stage. That's what she wants. She's poking him, she's calling him out. Even the ads with him, the chicken playing in the background, the people
Right.
falling asleep at the rally. Like
Right.
she knows how to get under his skin. But at the same time that she's doing that, she's not giving him oxygen or attention. She's not responding to his crap about her
Right.
not working at McDonald's, or her inflections in her voice. She's not responding to that. So it's like a very petty way to get under his skin. And I think that's what she's doing. And I love to see it.
Well, I think she understands that when you're dealing with somebody like Donald Trump or the Republicans in general, never
Yeah.
play defense because that's what they want you to play. Always be on offense, always be attacking. Because if you're on the defense, that's where they flourish. They're coming at you and you're backing up and you're on defense. Not if they come at you, come at them with something harder. But the thing about it is we're now 6 days away from that debate, that scheduled debate. And Donald Trump says, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. And now, just recently, as we get closer, he says, well, ABC is really a bad place. It's like he's setting it up to bail at the last minute. What do you think is going to happen there? Because he loses either way he goes. If he attends the debate, he's going to get crucified. If he doesn't attend the debate, he's going to be unmercifully called a chicken.
He's going.
You think
I
so?
think I'm one of those people that's like, oh yeah, he's going. I don't even question that anymore. He's going. For one, the way that she's needling him and she's putting it out there online, he already knows she's laying the groundwork that if he cancels that debate, everybody knows why he canceled it. And
Right.
he cannot look that weak. I do think in his brain, he's thinking that he can come out and just dominate and attack and attack and attack, like he did with Biden. However, he is underestimating her capability to come with him with the facts and call him out on his lies and point out his inconsistencies, but at the same time, hold firm to her policies and what it is that she needs. He's looking at it that he's going to come out as dominating and with strength, not understanding that the rest of the world is going to see him as wild, unhinged, crazy, deranged, lunatic. Like that's how we are going to see him. But in his mind, he thinks it's strength and it's dominating, and it's not going to come across like that at all. And then another reason I think this too is because I don't know if you've seen him pulling funding from swing states, and they're
Right.
trying to dump it in, I want to say, Michigan and Pennsylvania. So he's betting on getting the Sun Belt, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Like if they put the resource in those two places and
Right.
nowhere else, it'll be enough for him to just squeak by. To me, that's dangerous because you're only giving yourself one pathway to victory. That's it. That's all. And Kamala Harris, when you look at that map, she got like 4 or 5 different pathways to
Right.
get this thing. But he is like pulling his money, focusing it in this area so he can barely get enough to squeak by. Like that's what he's trying to do. So he does need to get some free advertisement, talk to those people in those 2 swing states that he's trying to get. I don't think the debate is something he could afford to pass up on. I just don't think it's an option for
I,
him right
I think there's one other factor about the debate that goes against Donald Trump. If he's up against Joe Biden, an old white guy, no problem. But
now.
I
Yeah.
think he's a little psyched out about a black woman. It either bothers him a lot or he's fearful of it because he's fearful of being made to look bad by a black woman of all things. So just by virtue of her being a black South Asian woman, being strong, being a prosecutor, he's already a little psyched out. He wouldn't be talking so badly about ABC if he wasn't worried about it.
Her mere presence has him rattled. That is kryptonite for him and the Republican Party as a whole. And it also kind of makes me think about Joe Biden and his political genius there,
Yeah.
because he knows if they come after her race, her gender, her being biracial, look at the groups of people that it is going to turn off.
Yeah.
And they don't know how else to deal with her. They don't have a policy platform to run on. So the only thing that they could do is attack her. But the only way that they know how to attack her is in ways that is going to turn people off.
Yeah.
And I think that Biden had the foresight to understand that. And that's why, and I think a part of it too is like sticking it to corporate Dems, like we are not going to allow you to pass her over, because he knew who it would alienate from the party. He's heard from so many years, like, you know, Black women carrying the Democratic Party and all of that other kind of stuff. Like, do we really want to lose this group? No, we do not. We want them to feel heard. We want them to feel validated. And I do think that's something people didn't understand when they say the whole DEI thing, why he didn't pick a white woman or whatever. And the way that I say it when I'm phone banking is, if you are sitting on a board and you are trying to sell a product to the gay community or to the Black community, or let's just say you're trying to sell wigs to Black women, and you have 5 straight white guys on that board.
Yeah.
How do you think that you are going to appeal to your target audience? You're not. So
No.
you do diversity on that board. You need someone from different communities that knows how to appeal to those people. So
Right.
how do you appeal to Black women? How do you appeal to just minorities in general? You need someone from those communities that can do that. How do you appeal to the working class? You need someone from the working class to do that. So he was saying, hey, this is the type of person that I need, who has the qualifications to fit this. It's not like he came to Vegas and said, hey, oh, I need a Black woman to be my VP. Can we go? That's different than what it is. And he had the foresight to see that. And he also had the foresight to see, this is who I'm going to pass the torch to. And this person can take that torch and just run off with it. And I don't think a lot of people give him credit for that. And I don't think they understand why he did that. And it's just for him to have that type of foresight, like down the road, like 8-10 years, is, to me, is impressive.
This may be a weird observation from a white guy,
Yeah.
but and when I'm watching Donald Trump and the Republicans, they want the Black vote.
They do.
They want the LGBTQ vote. They want uh, all the people that they don't particularly like. They still want their votes. But it's so clear when they're trying to sell these folks, they have zero respect for them. It's like, you're the peons. Of course, you're going to vote for us because we're going to tell you we're going to help you. We're not, but you're too stupid to know it. It's just to me, when they cater to them or pander to these people, it's a show of absolute disrespect.
It is. Yeah. And then that's why they are the white men sitting in that boardroom trying to appeal to the gay community, to the Black community, to the women community. And they don't know how to do that because they don't put any type of diversity on that board to help them appeal to those other communities. That's why it's not working. That's why people can see it's unauthentic and they're not falling for that. And I know that some people will say stuff like Byron Donalds and all Tim Scott and all of these people. They don't count. They
No.
don't count. Donald Trump stood his butt on stage the other day and said he is one of the good ones. Some of them are smart, most of them are not. And Byron Donalds just clapped and took that. You mean to tell me he is going to be able to appeal to the Black community? Get the heck out of here. His card was revoked a long time ago.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
actually need someone who believes in that community, invests in that community, spend time in that community, and stands with that community. You can't just pick a token and think you can just cash it in and it's going to be enough to go around for everybody. It does not work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. They don't even believe in speaking Spanish. When you go to the DNC and you have so many different people getting up there speaking their languages and different things, appealing to such a wider group of people. And I think that's why you see it in the polls. Trump's base, his number stays the same. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, it stays the same.
Yeah.
Kamala is currently going up because she is gaining support because she's reaching more diverse groups of people. And
But
they don't see that as an asset. They
would I
don't see
be
it as an asset at all. Like, you will say that you want to speak to a Black church, but instead of going to a Black church, you will rent one out and put a bunch of your supporters in there.
right?
You know what I mean? Like, you want to reach out to Black women, but you don't go and speak to Black women. When you get the chance to do that, you disrespect them, you call them nasty, you insult their journalistic integrity. It's just kind of like there's a disconnect there because they don't see their biases the way that we do.
Would I be correct in saying that? And I'm just guessing here, but based on my perspective, I would say that Black people hate somebody like Byron Donald worse than white
Oh,
people hate him,
with
even
a
worse than the racists hate him.
with a passion, with a passion. You cannot overstate what we feel about a Byron Donald, about a Tim Scott, about a Clarence Thomas. You can never understand that.
No, no
Yeah,
question.
it's deep.
I understand why, but I can't understand how much because, I mean, it's like they are Benedict Arnolds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not. There's got to be a point where everybody just supports everybody, regardless of color and all that sort of thing. But until such time, you would hope the people of your own group support you, and he certainly does not support anything. The only thing he supports is his own in self enrichment, and he's just as dirty and as bad as any other Republican, white or Black or otherwise.
Yeah, that's what we look at it as, like self-hatred,
Yeah,
where it came from, his childhood trauma, they ain't got nothing to do with me. But it's a self-hatred there. When you look at somebody like Clarence Thomas, who is openly coming against interracial marriage, when being in an interracial marriage himself,
that's
that
silly.
means the man that he sees when he looks in the mirror, that's not Uncle Ruckus that we see when we look at him. Like,
Right,
he really is that far removed from himself to a point to where you just really have to be delusional about who you are and what you look like and where you came from.
right.
That's been gone and dead out of that man a long time ago. Byron Donald is going in the same direction. Tim Scott going in the same direction. Normally, I would say good luck with that, but I don't even wish him luck.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's my contention that all these efforts to bring the Black people or group of however big into the Republican Party's nonsense.
it is.
They could say what they want to say, but it's just not working. It's not working at all.
No, the base is their base. They are there. So the the Black supporters from Trump, for the most part, that's a grift. Now there
Yeah,
are some believers out there, but for the most part, that's an organization and that is a grift. These people get paid to go to the rallies and sit behind Trump. I don't even know if you've noticed it, but they don't even really do that no more
no,
because they're not getting paid enough to put their faces out there like that. It's embarrassing for their faces to be out there, and then they have to take their butts home and deal with their people. For the most part, it is a grift. But those who are there, they are there. Just like, all of the other groups. I thought I was gonna have a heart attack when I saw gays for Trump. I was like, wait, what the heck? He wants to eradicate you guys. But it's just kind of like, or Latinos for Trump. Those who are there, they've completely drinking the Kool-Aid. they are there and they're not going nowhere. But
Yeah.
we can still make ground and keep moving forward. Trying to reach back and pull those people with you, it does absolutely nothing but just put anchors around your weight when you're trying to swim. There's
Ab-
no need in doing that. I
ab-
figured that.
Absolutely. Well, also we're going to take a quick break. Then we'll be right back. I want to talk about fundraising because some interesting stuff happened with Kamala Harris. Some amazing shit. We'll talk about that when we come back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have Old Soul with us today. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got the second half to deal with. But Old Soul, you wanted to bring something up with regards to last week's show.
Yeah, I did want to say like the comments were so nice. I did tell the wild child not to read those comments, not because I was like thinking that there would be like some rogue person or persons in there saying horrible things. I just kind of didn't want her to see what my response would be to those people.
Yeah.
So, but anyone who did leave a nice comment, I did screenshot them and I did send them to her. She's very appreciative. I wanted to say thank you. She wanted to say thank you. And I didn't want to put it in the email because I did want to just like verbally say it. So that's
Right.
really appreciative. Even like the people who opened up that's been through that, even the guy who was telling me about him and his two miscarriages that he had in his relationship, it happens more than people think. And I do appreciate those stories. I really do. And it helps her with her not feeling like she's alone or it's just her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when it comes to people listening to the Rational Boomer podcast, I would always say this: I'm not Joe Rogan up in this motherfucker with billions of listeners, but we have a fair amount of listeners that's growing every day. But the audience we have is quality. We don't deal with a lot of bullshit with the people that listen to the podcast, and I appreciate that immensely. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, I'll block somebody or hide somebody because they're just fucking idiots. But 99.9% of the people that listen and participate in the Rational Boomer podcast are cool in my book.
Yeah, and it's I think the study that we just saw since the overturning of Roe,
Yeah.
64,000 minors who were
Yeah.
rape victims have had to carry their children to term. The mother mortality rate among white women has gone up by 24%, and
Wow.
the mother mortality rate for Black women has gone up 39%.
Holy shit.
So these are women who are dying in childbirth, and these are children who are being forced to have babies by their rapist. So just to, I know the statistics, I know that that's going on. It's not a comfort for me to read that in the comment section when people open up,
Right.
but it does help her know that there's life on the other side of it. You know what I mean? And I'm always like, hey, look, they are in the boomer comment section, so you know they cool.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all right when you get to the other side of it. So that does help.
Well, and
You know.
while the wild child's got to be, as I said, we're proud of her here for what she's
Yeah.
gone through and where she's ended up. She's got to be proud of herself, and I think that when kids have successes, that just breeds more success. So now she's on the right track to live a full and productive life, and you're as you should get your fair share of credit there because you're the one that put her on that path, and she's been smart enough to continue to follow it and develop it as she goes. So there's a lot of praise to be sent to both you and Wild Child and your whole family for that matter. It's not you do a big part of it, but you got your daughter, you got Uncle Cleo, you got your TTs, you got your mom, you got a lot of people in there helping you, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, she's a good kid. I don't think she was ever a bad kid. I do just think that her being in that situation and being such like I guess you would say like a strong-willed child, very stubborn, very determined. And for someone who's just like would not let her spirit be broken by these people, it's just she's a good kid. I think that she could have been in a decent situation with anyone, and I think she would have came out on top because that's just she's a fighter. She really, really is.
Well, and that strong will and that fighting mentality is probably the thing that saved her. And then
Mhm.
getting a helping hand from you and your family and other folks. So we're glad to hear the happy story about her going to school and maybe going into the military and getting on track and doing all the things she needs to do. I don't know the child. I've never met her, but I would suggest probably pretty big things coming out of her in the coming
Yeah,
years. She's
it will
still
be.
young. She's still young. You know, I did a TikTok and I get frustrated, and you can tell me if I'm just unreasonable here. I constantly watch the mainstream media and they're constantly saying, "Oh, this election, it's a tight race. It's a toss up. We don't know who's going to win." And for the life of me, I don't know how that's the case because and I don't believe that that's the case. And I know people will say, "Oh, you're this Pollyanna guy. You're the guy half glass full, and you're always positive about stuff." But it's more than that. There's some facts to consider. First of all, Donald Trump is clearly, and I'll argue this with anybody, clearly the worst presidential candidate in the history of this country. Without question, the worst candidate when you think about the 34 felony charges, the lawsuits, the money, the exposure, the stealing classified documents, and all that stuff. But when you
Yeah,
counterbalance that with Kamala Harris, who could be arguably the most popular most excitement behind a presidential candidate that we've seen in history. So we've got the worst against the best. How is that a close race? It just doesn't make any sense. And one of the other ways that I look at support is I've said this before is fundraising. Now, Kamala Harris has raised 3 or 4 times as much as Donald Trump in a similar amount of time. And I was
hmm,
impressed to hear that since she's been nominated president or was a presumptive nominee, she's raised between 500 and 600 million dollars. That's fucking crazy. That's unprecedented. Nobody's ever done that before. And that's why I say I don't think it's that close. But she did something yesterday that says a lot about her and understanding where she's at, the good fortune she's having, and she has to look to the future. A lot of presidents will donate a certain money of their coffers down to the down ballots because they understand they need Congress on their side too. And Kamala Harris knows that better than anybody. But she's announced that she's donating $25 million to the down ballot elections. No president has even ever donated anywhere near that. So that's
yeah,
impressive. I mean, she's on a roll and she's letting everybody else benefit. But when you look at from the other side, how much is Donald Trump given to the down ballot elections? Well, he's not given them anything. In fact, he's raided the RNC and stolen money from those down ballot people. So when you take those things that I just said, please explain to me as if I'm a child, how can it be close? I refuse to believe it's close. I think it's going to be a decisive win. I won't say landslide, but I got it bouncing around in my head.
yeah. I just have to say also something that everybody tends to leave out, especially now with him making such a big deal about the 13 fallen soldiers from the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yeah,
1 million people died on this man's watch.
on COVID.
So many of them were preventable. So many. And they just completely overlook 1 million people and all of the empty chairs at the table that we have because of this man.
Right.
I just had to say that because I think people keep forgetting that 1 million people died on his watch. That is mind blowing to me. And they don't seem to care about it at all. It's just like, whoop, yeah, it happened, whatever. That's
Well,
crazy.
well, the other thing they have to consider too is well, if those 13 people died when Biden pulled them out of Afghanistan, he doesn't talk about the 156 that died while he was president.
Yeah,
156 Americans died in Afghanistan during his administration, but somehow they don't matter. And that's the thing that should be brought out. These 13 people, of course, were horrified that they were killed, and we respect them and we revere them and we pray for them. But you're just shit canning the other 156 that died. And over and above that, the 2,500 overall that have died since it started with George
Right.
W. Bush. It's these 13 only because it's helpful to him. He doesn't
Yeah.
care about people. He doesn't care about those 13 because he doesn't care about the 2,500 others that died because it's not
No,
expeditious to him.
these lives are props for him, which is just, it's so sad and disrespectful for him to look at them like that. He doesn't give them any value or any reference. He doesn't give their family and their grief process any type of value at all, other than the value that it could bring to him politically, which is unfortunate. And I do think that the left doesn't talk about the others that died on his watch,
No.
because there is a level of respect and privacy that we do try to give to those families. Unlike Donald Trump, I mean, there's apples and oranges right there. But I think not only is Donald Trump not giving any money to his down ballot races, but he got him on a shakedown. If you
Right.
use my name and my likeness, you need to pay me for that. Or you want to host an event in one of my properties, I don't care if it's empty or not. You need to pay me for that. He is shaking them down, which should let the Republican Party know that the only person in this race that Donald Trump cares about is himself. He's not worried about having a House. He's not worried about having a Senate. He's not worried about any of that. He's worried about himself being in a position of power. He's not worried about policy. Why? Because he has all of his sycophants around him, and their policy is Project 2025. He like, yeah, they got their handle, they gonna do it. They gonna bring me a paper, I'm gonna sign it, and that's gonna be that. Even though I'm thinking that they they want to put him in there so they can Baker act his butt and then really scoop in with their plan. He doesn't even think that they are looking at him as a stepping stone, basically.
I just have to say one thing. We got to be transparent about this. When we started this conversation, it was professional old soul. In this last burst that you came out about taking them on the shakedown, and you I got to say, you're taking it to the streets there a little bit. Is that
But
really you, or are you just
that's
trying to act black? You're.
this,
I found out last week she was black, and she never told me that. And I don't know if whether she's not black or not. It's fucking ridiculous.
this is, he likes to see himself as a mob boss.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is a complete mob takeover. And he's not even seeing his underlings are looking at him, just chomping at the bit for him to get in there so that they can do what they got to do. He doesn't see it. But, he is shaking these people down. It's, to me, it's mind boggling that they are this weak. I've never seen a group of people who claim to be so strong, such alphas. And they want to call everybody else sheeps and snowflakes. However, they just fall in line. They do whatever this man say, and they are so weak, so weak. I don't know how they go home and look at their children and their families and not hang their head. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, for the longest time, people have always bemoaned the fact that everything Donald Trump, he gets away with it. He delays it. He does all that stuff. And I think those times are over. It may take a little time to get to the point where he's racing down the hill into his crash. But I mean, the whole thing with the January 6th um, upcoming trial and how um, Judge Chutkin put it on the side to decide, gave him some time. Well, actually, Jack Smith wanted 3 weeks to present something regarding how immunity ties in with his original indictment. So he takes the 3 weeks, and everybody's going, "Oh my God, what's going on? Jack Smith is complicit." Everybody's looking for something to fucking worry about. And then Jack comes back with a whole new superseding indictment that shit cans the first one, kind of work around the immunity thing. And you just saw Donald Trump shit his pants. So now that's in a different situation. That's a trial that could start sooner because he's going to have to go through this whole process again because it's kind of a new set. It's the same crimes, but it's set in a different way. And they would have to take it through the whole system again up to the Supreme Court. The only thing is it wouldn't happen till after the election. The trial won't happen till after the election. And I got to think that if Kamala Harris wins, Democrats win the House and the Senate, that the Supreme Court's going to take a little different tone on their decisions once that
Oh,
happens. They're going to
yeah.
change their tune a little bit.
It's not going to save them
No,
because they're dealing
no,
with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. They don't make moves based off of, well, if we remove the filibuster, once Republicans can get in, then they don't make moves like that. They do what they have to do for the American people and what is needed at this time. Like they don't move out of fear. And
right,
I do think that boggled Democrats down for a long time, especially with that filibuster. Well, if we remove it, then what defense mechanism that do we have when the Republicans take over? But you
right,
can't worry about that when you have women's rights on the issue, when you have a rogue Supreme Court, when you have people trying to privatize Social Security, stuff like stupid stuff like that.
right,
It's just kind of like when you're fighting for the American people, you can't just be scared of what the Republicans may or may not do. And then you also have to govern and legislate knowing that when you work for the American people, that they are going to have your back. And they are not, I mean, just imagine, and from, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but from phone banking, Republicans who are like on the fence, most likely when by the time they get to me, I'm pushing them over to Kamala Harris. But they have this thing about a single payer health system or Medicare for all. Like they think that it's communist, is going to destroy the country. I don't know what it is. So what I'm thinking and hoping that they do is a public option. And then
right.
people will naturally like steer towards that. One of my talking points is, have you ever thought about like starting a business, but you had to stay at your job because you had a wife and children and you needed that health insurance? And
Right.
if you go over here and do this, not only are you not going to have health insurance, but your families are going to have health insurance. Well, at least now your children and your grandchildren can be like, you know what? Yeah, I can start that business and still have health insurance because I got this public option over here. And I think that's a way to kind of like segue people into moving forward with a single payer health system.
Well,
And I do think Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are the type of people who are smart enough to know that we can't just bring the house down on people. We kind of have to ease them into it,
right,
but also in a way to where they can feel the benefits of it. And so once you put certain things into place, how does the Republicans run on their current platform? It's like what Eric was saying last night. They are going to have to change that up for the
right,
simple fact you have somebody over here giving your children free breakfast and lunch at school and free pre-K. So, you can go back to work and your husband can go back to work and you're not worrying about being an arm and a leg for daycare.
right,
The
right.
Republicans are going to come around and say, you know what? Yeah, that's communism. We're going to take that away. So when you give these things to the American people, the Republican Party has absolutely no option but to switch up their platform because now you are going to run on taking away benefits from people and they can feel the benefit of that. They
Right.
know that the rich is paying their share. They know that they are going to have their Social Security when they reach a certain age. They know that they don't have to worry about these daycare bills being the same amount that they are paying for rent. They know that they have grant money or a rebate that can help them get their home ownership.
Right.
How are you going to run against that when you are taking away things that is currently benefiting them, their children, and making their lives so much easier? How do you run against that? You
Well,
can't. You have to switch that platform up.
well, that's exactly right. We had the child tax credit, and then the
Mm-hmm.
Republicans took it away. Those people
Yeah.
that got the child tax credit and had it taken away, they voting Republican. I fucking guarantee you that. Uh,
Yeah.
but but today
It
I heard,
lifted child poverty 50%. It cut it in half.
yeah, that's communist.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous. But the thing about it is, I'd heard that Kamala Harris is coming out with some more economic policies today. I don't know what they are. I heard one of them. People may know by the time they listen to this, but we're recording this on the night before. But I know she's going to do some things for small business too. She's going to
Mm-hmm.
improve tax credits and stuff for small business. So she's going to have some tax policies or some economic policies, which is something we need to address. And I'm glad she is. And hopefully the things she's addressing are are going to be well received. But then when you go to Donald Trump and say, what's your economic policies? Uh, drill, baby, drill, and we got to stop those fucking windmills because they're giving birds cancer. I mean, that's
It's a
it.
bird cemetery under those windmills. You ain't seen that? Look at all them
Uh,
birds.
I go by
Oh,
windmills
and,
all the
and they want to
time.
kill all the cows so you can't eat red meat anymore. Did you know they were going to do that too?
No, no, had no fucking clue. But this is what's going to happen in this debate because in the first debate, Joe Biden wasn't the kind of guy to fight against this steamroller that is Donald Trump. The moderators gave no pushback. Uh, but Kamala Harris knows, as a prosecutor, she knows how to nail fuckers. She knows how to tie them up. And it won't take much with Donald Trump. But the good news about the debate is everybody's going to be watching it. It will be live and it will not be edited. They're going to have to, if they want to watch their Lord and Savior, they're going to have to watch him flounder. And if she's smart, and I know she is, she will say things right up front that freak him out, embarrass him right away, and then the rest of the show will be nothing more than fucking word salad, and a bad one at that for Donald Trump.
Yeah, all she has to do seriously is one uppercut,
Yeah,
and he's fighting to stay on his feet for the next 12 rounds. Like
right.
that's all she needs to do to him. Because he's going to be that far off balance, he cannot handle that,
He'll be in
especially
panic
from a
mode.
black woman. He can't handle that. So trying to contain himself, that's not going to last long at all. One of the things that I am looking forward to him saying, and I cannot wait for her to check him on this, is that, and he's saying it now for your state in particular, you guys are letting women have babies and then you are aborting the babies after birth, even though
Right,
that's murder. I
right.
cannot wait for her to tell him how insulting that is to women. And I know she's gonna call him out on that. It's disrespectful, insulting. Not only that, but it's stupid because it's not happening anywhere in this country. And the only reason he's saying that it's happening in your state, when before he never mentioned the state that it was happening in, he would just use these vague terms like on the left, that's what they want, or that's what they do. It's because Tim Walz is running. That's the only reason he's tying that to your state now. But I can't wait for her to tell him how insulting that is to women. It's like nobody has told him, do you know how insulting that is? Do you know how it feels when you say that to women who have been through that type of loss, that type of tragedy? And for other people who have watched women mourn that, you know how insulting that is. I just want her to call him out on that so bad. So,
Oh,
so bad.
she's going to reprimand that motherfucker multiple times, and she's the right person to do it. I wanted to bring this up, see what you thought about this. You got all these people giving speeches: Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris is a great speech giver, presenter. She's a great, and she's very presidential, and she does it an amazing job. I think people feel comfortable when they listen to her. They feel like she's solid. But it may sound like I'm biased here because I'm from Minnesota. Of those four, the best, the most inspirational speech giver is Tim Walz.
Oh,
He reminds me of the coach we had in high school. His name was Mr. McEnroy, and he'd come out there during the pep rallies. He'd pull his pants up to his knees and he'd be bouncing around and he would hype the whole crowd up. And Tim's smart and he says the right things, but there's something about him that's just infectious and gets people hyped up. And people
yeah.
who say the vice president doesn't have much impact on the presidential race, that's been true up to now. I don't know that that's true now. I think he's going to have a big impact.
I think he already has. I know one of the things when phone banking, one of the things that he has said that has stuck with people in regards to Project 2025, when they've heard him say this, is if someone draws up the playbook, they plan on using it. And
Yeah,
I have had people say that they've heard him say that, and that is what kind of have them sitting on the fence trying to figure out which way they want to go.
right.
Because it is kind of like, well, well, why did they write that 900-page book if they're not going to use it? Why
Yeah.
did they take the time to do that? And then when he says it in a way that's so relatable, he didn't say why they draw up a 900-page book. He actually put it in those terms of, coach, like, it's a playbook. They plan on using it. It's the way he said it, it has stuck with people. And I've heard him say it before, but until I'm like talking to people who are leaning towards Kamala and Tim, that is something that most of them have heard him say, and it has stuck with them, like really, really stuck with these people.
And
So
I
I
think,
do think it will make a difference. He's so genuine.
yeah,
When he was at the state fair, and I was watching him eat his pork chop on a stick, you could tell that he just wanted to do his thing, and then just kind of like get the cameras out of there. So that he can enjoy himself and it can go back to being normal for the people who were there.
yeah,
Because he was like doing an interview and he was like, yeah, it's not about me. I just don't want to cause too much of a fuss for all these other people, like at their booths and their stuff
right,
that they had going on. So he was kind of like, let me do what I got to do, eat my pork chop on a stick, and then just kind of like let these people make their money. Like that's where his mind was.
right.
He had all these cameras and people surrounding him, was like, hey, I just want these people to be able to make their money and do what they got to do. And it was just so genuine when he said it.
I
It
think
just,
I think the advantage Kamala Harris has and Tim Walz has over the Republicans. Donald Trump was well received by a certain amount of people in 2016 because
yeah,
they felt like he is the one guy that's going to fight against the man for us. Now, he didn't, but that's what he said he was going to do, and people bought into it. Um, I think they look at Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and because they're so relatable, they know they're tough, they know they're going to fight, but even more than that, they're us. Donald Trump
yeah,
was never us. Tim
yeah,
Walz is us. I mean, somebody said he's the poorest vice presidential candidate in history, and I always make the joke that that I probably got more money than he does, and I don't have
yeah,
a lot of money. But the point is through all the time he spent in Congress and as a governor, he was never out there to enrich himself. He literally
mm-hmm,
was trying to help other people, and the same can be said for Kamala.
mm-hmm,
Everything she's done is to help the country or help the people. You can't say that about Donald Trump. You can't say that about Mitch McConnell. You can't say that about any Republican. And I think people are recognizing that if you keep telling them and you keep showing them, it gets through. And not everybody will buy into it, the 30% or 25% that are Trumplafucks, but enough of the normal minded people will say, I'm not a Democrat, but fuck. I got
yeah.
insurrection or help for the middle class. That's not a hard choice to make.
Yeah, you know what else that I think, and I'm just going to ask your opinion on this, but I think something that works for them is that this doesn't look like your typical presidential ticket.
No,
You know what I mean? So if you would have had Kamala Harris and Shapiro, that aesthetic looks completely different than Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
I
For the
agree.
simple fact, like, okay, he got a couple extra pounds on, he's lost his hair at the top. Like, he just looks like your neighbor. Like the ticket looks like America. You know what I mean? Like, I think just the aesthetic of it, I don't know if she was thinking about that when she picked him. I do think that she was leaning more towards someone who had that same middle class background for her,
Right,
and
right.
somebody who really understood what the middle class needed. You know what I mean? Like, I do think she was leaning into that. And I think it's important for her to be able to get along with him. If this is somebody who is going to be the last person in the room with you for the next 8 years, yeah, y'all better be able to get along. But I do think if you look at the other candidates, just like aesthetically what that looked like, it looked like a presidential ticket. So it's so hard for the right to try to say, oh, that these are, I heard Byron Donalds trying to say this and it completely failed. Like Fox News didn't even buy it, that these are just like corporate Democrat types. He was trying to spin that narrative. It didn't work and it
No.
couldn't work because there's no way that you could look at Tim Walz's bank account and then just look at this just regular guy and say that he's like corporate anything or he's an oligarch or any of that other crap that they try to put on them. However, if you would have put Shapiro there, then that could have been a narrative that they could have tried to run with.
Yeah, I
But
think
he,
I think if they put Shapiro in there, it gives the impression of more establishment
yeah,
politics.
Mm-hmm.
And we know
Yeah.
what establishment politics did to um, Hillary Clinton. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why they
Hillary is
voted
you.
against her. You know, these
Mm-hmm.
people are tired of these elites coming in and telling them what to do. You get somebody like Kamala Harris, who has not led a privileged life. Everything she's got, she's earned. She was a prosecutor, she was a U.S. senator, she was an AG, now a vice president and a presidential candidate. She wasn't handed that. And Tim Walz is the same thing. When he became a member of Congress, he won a seat in Congress that was held by a Republican in a red area for a long time. Gutnick was his name, and he had been a mainstay for a long time. For him to come in there, work his ass off, and actually beat a Republican in a red area, that meant he put a lot of work in, and he did the job he did. And the same with Kamala. She's accomplished so much over these years. I think people are realizing that, you know, they are one of us, and I think that has a big impact on who people are going to vote for.
Yeah, and it's not just us, because when you think about one of Donald Trump's strongest stitch was the deep state, these
Right.
established politicians, and the right, they really leaned into that, because even though you have it to me is so offensive when you have Ivy League graduates like Kennedy, and you know that he does not sound like that. Like, this is somebody who code switches like crazy
Yeah.
intentionally when he is in congressional hearings. Like, he really does that intentionally, and he talks down to his constituents because he wants to make them feel like he's one of them.
Right.
Even I always call him Comer Powell, so I can't even remember his name now. But somebody who's worth $10 million,
Yeah.
and he is sitting there talking about the working man when he don't step foot in his state. Somebody like Ted Cruz, that's not a working man. But every time you see him in Texas, he want to put the jeans on, try to make himself seem like a regular type of guy, because they know that people who tend to vote Republican, they don't want to see establishment. So that's not what they show them, even though it's fake. But you
Yeah.
have somebody like Tim Walz coming in. He's not establishment. He doesn't have that type of money that they have. And you can feel that this is just who he is when he comes in there. So I do think some, when you see these Republicans that are coming over to Tim Walz more than Kamala, I think that's the reason why. Is he's the complete opposite of establishment, but it's genuine and it's sincere. It's not a front. It's not something that he is just doing to get their votes. I do think that it kind of gives permission to some of these people who they don't want that establishment, but they want someone who really isn't that establishment. You know what I mean?
You know what's interesting is, in addition to Kamala and Tim Walz, we've had occasion now with the convention and other situations to hear their spouses, Doug Emhoff and
Yeah.
Tim Walz's wife. Both of them very good speakers. I didn't know what to expect with Tim Walz's wife, but I knew exactly what she was saying. She was talking about something, and she was going to get serious, and she says, "I'm going to use my teacher voice now." Now, as somebody who's been married to a teacher for 41 years, I get that voice a fucking lot, and it's some serious shit. So, but you know, it just seems like the package just works on all cylinders, and everything is going the way of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, everybody on the Republican side will say it's just the honeymoon period. It's just a sugar high. This ain't ending. This isn't going to end. When that debate hits, it's going to be ramped up anymore, even more, because people will love nothing more than seeing Donald Trump get his ass kicked.
Yeah, and the part of the, and I've been seeing this on the news, but I know that this is here in our field offices in Nevada, and we have 14 of them. The volunteers and the people that show up, it's like, oh my gosh, where's all these people coming from?
Yeah.
And I've never thought that I would say that in a political campaign ever. There is just people after people. Like, every day you have, like, younger people who's just like, hey, I'm in school, but I can come on the weekends. Like, there's just like so many people. There's so many people to the point to where I'm not like just like phone banking regular people. Like, the people they slide to me is like, hey, these people like need somebody that can actually like take 30, 40 minutes and talk to them,
Right.
give them some stats. maybe share some videos with them or whatever. Like, can you do that? Because there's just so many like regular low level people and it's like every single day, it seems like more and more and more people. You go to these field offices out here, and there's like most of the time there's no place to sit. That's how many people it is. And I was like, oh yeah, look at this is going on in Nevada. And then I see on the news that this is everywhere, including Georgia.
Yeah. Well,
It's like,
originally the report came out, they had 400,000 uh, volunteers in Georgia. That sounded crazy. They fixed that and they said it was actually 35,000 in Georgia, which is a
yes,
lot.
yeah,
400,000 at last report throughout the country. That's a
yeah,
crazy amount of people that are donating their time to get her elected. I mean,
yeah,
there is a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum, a lot of inspirational shit going on. Like I said earlier, this is kind of unprecedented. We've never seen a presidential candidate with this much support. And still, the media tells us, oh, it's so close. It's not fucking close. I don't care what anybody says.
yeah. Not only that, but they are, I don't even know how to describe it other than covering for Trump. It's kind of like the
Yeah,
news is like the Elon Musk for Trump in the news.
right,
Like you see Trump when he did that whole like rambling statement about the debate, ABC News being unfair, Slopodopoulos, all this name calling, petty grievances, whatever. They reported Trump confirmed upcoming debate on September 10th. They
right,
didn't say, quote, and list what the heck he said so people can know what it is that he's saying. They
right.
just made it sound like he just made some regular presidential statement, and he completely didn't do that. But then when you look at what they reported on Kamala Harris dodges ethnic question or whatever the heck it is that they said. When Dana Bash set her butt up there and said, how do you respond to somebody saying that you turn black? How do you respond to that? I mean, how, like if somebody said, you know what, old said that you turned white. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
How do you
what,
respond to that? The only thing that you can do is be the adult in the room and be classy and just say, yeah, I'm not even going to dignify that.
yeah,
Next question. Is
and
to me, they are trying so hard to cover up the danger and the threat that this man is to us and to them. Because if he were to win, these news outlets and that free speech and all this stuff that they like to say, that is absolutely not going to happen at all. It's
no.
straight up Russia propaganda. You say what it is that we tell you to say, or you can get your butt off the air. It's literally black and white. And they cover for him to make him seem normal. And there's absolutely nothing normal about that man. Nothing.
They certainly lower the bar for him. He can say crazy shit. There's no response, and if Kamala says something that they question, they're all over her, and it's just not working anymore. In fact, what we're finding out is that the mainstream media, the streaming and the network news stations, they're taking some hits. They're taking some hits because they're losing viewership. And then when we had the DNC, we had all those creators or influencers out there. And when they studied what they got out of the influencers out there, it was far more than what they got from the media. It was a lot of money. $800 million is what they figured. I think we're going to start seeing a shift, especially when we get through this election. And if they find out that all this time they've been saying it's going to be close and it's not close, people are just not going to trust the media or polls or anything anymore. And honestly, that's going to be more beneficial for the people like us who are talking about facts that don't have big corporate people above us telling us what to say and when to say. It's sad
Yeah,
that that's how people have to get the news, but I hear more and more and I'm amazed when I hear it. People will come to me and say, I don't even watch the news anymore. I just listen to what you have to say. And it's not that I'm a genius, it's just that I'm telling the truth, the
yeah,
facts. I'm not trying to couch it so that I can suck you in and make you scared. You know, it is what it is. Here are the facts. You can like them, you can not like them, you can listen, you can not listen. But that's what people need. They just need the facts. Most people aren't dumb enough to be sucked into some of this stuff. But if that's all that's available to you, what are you going to do? So now with the influencers, TikTok, the podcast, what have you, and there's many of them, not just this one, that are giving out great information, and people will seek that out. And it's going to hurt the mainstream media. And I think this election is going to take its toll on mainstream media.
Yeah, they are completely complicit. I think at this
Absolutely.
point, they are just like an extension of the Trump campaign. Even the
Seems
interview
so.
with Dana Bash, it was basically she could have said, Donald Trump said this, what's your response? Donald Trump said that, what's your response? Well, we heard this on Fox News, what's your response? Like
Right.
that summed up the interview right there. Yes, she did a good job of being able to compose herself and deal with him in real time, because not everyone has the patience to do that. I could have said, like, I was watching it and I thought about you because I could have just saw you saying, "Oh, F." Like, are all the questions you're going to ask me is about Fox News and Trump? Or are you going to ask me some real journalistic questions? Why are we here? I could have saw you snapping on her
I
because
would
that's
have.
what she's doing, and it's pretty insulting. You know what I mean? It was like, what's the point in that? She needs to sit down and have a serious interview. And then as soon as she does, the only thing that you want to do is ask her about right-wing talking points. That's absolutely they're not based in fact at all, ignorant at best. It's just kind of like I didn't get that, but she did do a good job. But it's like, how do you debunk things that is not rooted in reality? How do
Yeah.
you sit and say, hey, how's your economy going to be better than Trump's? It already is.
Yeah.
1 million people didn't die on my watch. We
Yeah.
have food in the grocery stores. Yeah, we're going to have to go after them for this price gouging nonsense, but you can go in there and buy toilet tissue. We don't
Right.
have our nurses and our doctors wearing trash bags. We don't have mass graves. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of question is that? The fact is, this administration is better for the economy than Trump was. So instead of listening to Trump saying, hey, I was better for the economy, why don't you ask me a real question? And she didn't do that. And I don't think that not too many people could have sat there and took that without giving Dana Bash a piece of their mind like I probably would have.
Yeah, yeah, I would have given her a piece of my mind. I would have tried to embarrass her, which wouldn't have been hard. And I don't know how to take Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, and all these fucks that do that sort of thing. Is it because that's who they are and they're that just that bad a journalist, or is it because of the pressure they might be getting from the administration in these media outlets? We know the person who's the CEO of CNN is a hardcore Republican, a donor to Donald Trump. Um, I have to. I'm certain that they're feeling pressure from the higher ups because I've experienced it at a much smaller scale when I've worked at radio stations and I will do something that I think is right and somebody will come to me and say you can't do that. Well, why not? It's true. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's true. We just don't want you sounding like that. And that's one of the things, whether I make money or make no money or have listeners or don't have listeners, it's just such a freeing thing to sit down on this podcast or on TikTok and say what the fuck I believe. You can like it or not like it, but no one's going to tell me to stop.
Yeah, I do think that it's a lot of pressure from the top. I don't think they are allowed to be journalists the way that they would want to be, especially Tapper. One of the people who I love is John Favreau, because I do like to watch people and read people who write political speeches, and
Right,
he is the one who writes Obama speeches. He even wrote, or he consulted with Obama for the one that they did at the DNC, right?
right.
And he's had Jake Tapper on his show.
Really?
And what the things that he said on his show, the facts that he knows, you can see, oh, that this is a journalist right here. However, when he is actually on his show, he is not that person that you saw on Pod Save America. He's completely different. The
Right.
same thing with Jen Psaki. You can see her when she's with John Favreau. You can see her when she's with Brian Tyler Cohen, how completely different she is than when she's on her regular show.
Right.
Sometimes I do wonder what these contracts look like, because when you have Lawrence O'Donnell,
Yeah.
who is like, I don't know what my coworkers are up to, but this
Yeah.
is what it is. And his ability to be able to call them out, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, what their contracts look like. That's what I think. And that's what I wonder is like if it's contractual, and if they just don't have the strength to go against the grain. Because when you look at somebody like Don Lemon, who's like, I'm not supposed to sit here and play these games with these two heifers up here. That's just not supposed to happen. And
Yeah.
they fired him. So it is kind of like, this is what happened when you fall out of line. Let me show you what that is.
Well, that's what I like about Lawrence O'Donnell, and maybe it's because he's very popular and he's got a lot of clout with MSNBC. Because he's the guy I like because he will call his own people out, other stations out, uh, political people out. He's just speaking the truth, and he comes from an interesting background, not a journalist background. He worked in politics. He was a consultant on the West Wing. He worked directly with these politicians, so he knows what's up. He knows the bullshit and he knows the truths. I respect a guy that's willing to do that, and I'm surprised that he's allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Usually they will try to shut him down, but these other people, you have to wonder, you got to make money, you got to feed the family and all that stuff, and you got some power because you're on television. But do you really want to give up your integrity just to get that paycheck? That's hard to do. I mean, I understand why people do it because I guess I did it for a little bit, not to the extent that we're talking about now. But God damn it. It's so, I mean, somebody like Lawrence O'Donnell, you can't tell me Lawrence O'Donnell couldn't start a fucking podcast on his own, do what the fuck he wants to do, and make a shit ton of money. You just There's
Yeah.
no way you can tell me that he couldn't do that. And maybe that's his threat. Okay, fucking fire me. I'll just go kick your ass on a podcast.
Yeah. I thought about, honestly, when they let Mehdi Hassan go, I was like, wait, what?
That
But
pissed
he's
me off.
killing it in the podcast arena right now.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought, I was like, man, they supposed to get rid of Joy Reid too. And I'm surprised that they did it. When they bounced Mehdi Hassan, I was like pissed off, and I was like, yeah, they supposed to get rid of Joy too. Because lately it seems like Rachel Maddow has kind of like fell in line too. And
Yeah.
I know it's just my opinion, but it seems like she's promoting books and podcasts. It's not the same energy that she used to come with. And
No.
so I'm like, dang, they got her too. So I kind of like expect for like, okay, most of these people can't be bought and they will fall in line. I don't see that happening with Lawrence O'Donnell at all. I just don't see that happening.
No.
Um,
I
Somebody else who I wasn't expecting, but I do know he's a privileged white man and he has that white man Karen going on is Joe Scarborough. He's
yeah.
like, if y'all ever do this to me again. And I'm like, oh, his inner Karen is coming out. So I do think some of them, they are just not gonna just toe that line like that. They just won't
Well,
do it.
well, Ari Melber had Corey Lewandowski on, and Corey Lewandowski was making some comments about Ari Melber. Ari Melber
Mm-hmm.
just had it, man. He said, "Listen, I'm going to sue those motherfuckers. If you want to get in on that lawsuit, I'm just warning you right now." And Corey
Mm-hmm.
kind of shut the fuck up. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be done. As I've said before, if there was any pushback by any media outlet in 2015, we would not be in this mess anymore. Donald
Mm-mm.
Trump would not have been president. MAGA would have faded away, and we would have been fine. And that's why I hold the media very responsible. At that time, social media, or this kind of social media, the news type of thing, wasn't as strong back then. TikTok wasn't around back then, and the podcasts were, more entertainment podcasts. But there's been some big changes in social media and on the internet with podcasts like this and the TikToks and such. And there's, I do what I do on TikTok. There's probably 100 other people roughly in my age range doing similar things. A lot of people are hearing stuff they need to hear that they weren't hearing in 2015. And that's why I think there's going to be such a massive difference in 2024.
Yeah, I don't watch mainstream as much as I used to, but I did hear you and Eric, like, that was a good podcast. But I heard y'all talking last night that they are starting to kind of like make Trump like the butt of the joke and kind of
Right,
making fun
right,
of him. I don't watch it like that to know. I do know that in 2016, when they all realized like, oh crap, he could win, and then they started to try to cover him accurate. It was just too late by that time because they had fed this fire so much oxygen that it just blew up like that.
right.
Do you think that they are realizing that now and maybe that's why they're starting to poke him a little bit? Or is it just a ratings thing? What do you think?
Well, I think it's ratings, but the thing is, people love building somebody up and building a hero and building a
Mm-hmm.
star, but they love tearing those motherfuckers down even more. And at this point, he was the media darling because he got all the attention. But now
Mm-hmm.
it's just like reruns now. It's just like watching, Me TV and watching the old TV shows because it's the same thing. And now all of a sudden we got this excitement with Kamala and Tim. They're now the media darlings. And that's where the shift is. The money is with Tim and Kamala. So they're focusing on them. And the
Yeah.
money is with kicking Donald Trump's ass. It has nothing to do with what they really believe or what they're really reporting. It is about ratings. And right now, it's cool to kick Donald Trump's ass and support Kamala Harris. And that's the way it's going to be for the next couple of months until she wins the presidency. The idea that this is a honeymoon period or a sugar high and it's going to fade, it's not going to fade. We got 2 months. It's gonna every little thing that happens is gonna kick it up again, and uh, that that momentum is going to continue through the election.
Yeah. And you know what? When you said that, it kind of made me think that it's not even like a good rerun, like how I
No,
could sit there and like watch Little House on the Prairie first episode all the way to the end or Beverly Hillbilly. Like I could watch that. It's kind of like a rerun. However, it's like the speed has been slowed down because he is so low energy. So yeah, he is saying the same crap and he's pulling the same stunts. Like we've seen this before. However, it's so much more like slow and it has gotten darker. It really, really has gotten darker because before he used to just like hug the flag and, do all of this crap, performative crap. But now he doesn't even do that. It's just like, this is a hellscape. America sucks. And, like, I don't know how people listen to that as an American and not be offended. Like, I get offended when he says how horrible we are. I just get offended by that. And I think
yeah,
maybe you think that could be turning people off too?
yeah, yeah. I agree with you about the rerun thing. Good reruns are Beverly Hillbillies, um, a lot of the popular shows. The reruns we're looking at now with the Trumplefux is like a Small Wonder. Remember that show? That was where that stupid little girl was a robot. It was the dumbest show ever. Nobody's watching reruns of that bullshit.
Definitely not. Definitely not. So yeah, it's just like a bad rerun that you like. Oh well, I watched the first season, but I'm cool. I don't need to see a second or a third.
Well, it's like a reality show. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. The reruns aren't worth watching again because it's not entertaining. It's just a real
At least
action.
on reality television, it's like it's the same thing, but it's sometimes it could be a different cast. On
Yeah,
here, it's the same thing and it's the same cast. He's bringing the same characters back from before, who
yeah.
were
Who were
I
losers in the
mean
first place.
these people.
Absolutely. Well, so we're going to wrap things up for the Irrational Boomer
I
podcast.
forgot to I
Tell me.
forgot to tell you that you know how you were saying, Trump and where his money is going. We forgot to say that, some of that money is really going for a good cause. Laura Trump's singing career, starting to take off. People are really getting into it. Money well spent.
I spent some time in the music business, as I've told you. I've got tons of stories about the music business, and at some point, I'm going to either do a different show and talk about that stuff because I can talk to a lot of people that's kind of intriguing. But here's the thing: what I know about the music business. If you
Hmm.
got somebody who puts out a record and it doesn't sell, that's one thing. But if it
Yeah.
doesn't sell and they make fun of you, there typically isn't another record. But Laura Trump's got another record, and I saw the video of it, and Jesus Christ, that is so fucking horrible. It's
It's
like
not
a
even
bad
catchy like the
contestant on
American.
America's Got Talent. They would have got four X's on that bitch.
Are you kidding me? I don't even think she would have made it back.
No,
She'd have been one of them rejects. I saw that she was, she's catching a lot of heat about the auto tune. So she released a version without the auto tune.
not a good idea.
Girl, your family and your friends do not love you if they are allowing you to walk around looking like a fool like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. The one without the auto tune, it did not help her cause at all. The I really do like how she was just saying, I earn everything, no one hands me anything. Harris was handled all of this stuff, right? And she has absolutely, absolutely no self-awareness to see that the only reason she was able to make two horrible albums was because of her last name and who her father-in-law is.
Yeah,
No self-awareness at
and they
all.
kind of handed her the RNC. So I'm just, fucking
Oh,
saying.
I mean, all of her experience.
It's funny. I did spend some time in the music business, and I spent some time with my granddaughter recently, and my wife and she were singing, and I look at my wife and I said, at least we don't have to worry about losing our little girl to the horrible world of music because she has zero talent. I'm going to say, honey, don't sing. You're not a singer. Let's make you a brain surgeon because you're really smart, or a lawyer or something. But this singing thing, it's not going to work. It's not, I mean, I don't think she was in tune once. And she's a little girl. She's 4 years old. But you know how you have those little girls that just have a natural talent, or little boys have a natural talent for singing? That's not her
Yeah.
natural talent. Just not it.
She could be an engineer in the music,
Exactly.
a songwriter,
Exactly.
or maybe she could be good at an instrument. It's just kind of like, hey, you can still do music, but you need to do it to your talent.
Yeah. My son spent some time in band because mom insisted. They said, "What do you think?" I said, "I wasn't in band. I wouldn't be in band if you're not musically inclined." And they put them both in band, and they had him play different instruments, and it didn't go well. So they gave him like the French horn or something that's you know isn't used much and isn't hard to play because it's not very complex. And then the moment mom let them quit, they were gone. We may have some talents and we have some smart kids in our family, but music ain't our thing. It's it's just not. We are terminally white when it comes to rhythm.
You're within good company because Laura Trump, she can relate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She would be the best singer in my family,
Oh, God.
but I wouldn't do a video for her. But I'm
Oh,
smart
God.
enough to know she ain't worth a shit. Um, anyway, old soul, thank you for coming on. It's always great to have you on. Thanks for accommodating and coming on early to give this the I'll just say it, and I don't know how you react to it. The new meat a chance
Hey,
tomorrow.
no problem.
Um,
Good luck, Nuvi.
and don't take any offense to that because uh, my granddaughter calls me meat a lot of times, so it's fully with affection. All right. Well, Old Soul, thank you very much. For those listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.